Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, your guest co-host, Mahdi Sabbouri, Wizz MMA, longtime friend of the show. Today, we're going to talk about UFC Saudi Arabia, Israel Adesanya versus Nassourdine Imavov. And my friends, it's going down this Saturday morning, not Saturday night, Saturday morning, live in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. You got the former two-time middleweight champion, Izzy Adesanya, trying to defend his top 5 spot against the emerging Russian sniper or French sniper. That's up for debate, but the very streaking Nassourdine Imavov in a 5-round main event. And there's definitely title implications on the line, especially if Imavov wins. But for Izzy, this is about maintaining that top 5 spot. So let's get right down to business. So in the main event, we have the aforementioned former two-time UFC middleweight champion, Israel Adesanya. He's minus 155. He's taking on Nassourdine Imavov, who's plus 135. Now, just to read their records real quick, Israel Adesanya is 24-4, Nassourdine Imavov 15-4. So, yeah, Izzy's got about 9 more professional MMA fights than him, and then you count the kickboxing as well. But I'm curious about your opinion. There was a specific reason I wanted you on this show. I feel like you have a great eye for the striking side of things, and you've been exposed to both these guys for a very long time. You're familiar with both. What do you kind of think here? Because, yeah, there's a talk about Izzy potentially being on a decline, and I agree that he probably won't fight for a belt again. But, Mahdi, one thing I wanted to say was this kind of reminds me of a fight that happened a year or two ago between Max Holloway and Arnold Allen, where, okay, Max might not win a belt again. Volk was the champ at the time. He lost to him 3 times, but Max showed that there's still levels to this shit, like in the Cater fight, like in the Arnold Allen fight. Like, if even though these guys are studs, if you're not quite on the level, he will expose that. So my question for you, Mahdi, is do you think Imavov is on the level to surpass someone like Izzy, get that title shot, or do you view this as kind of levels, Max Holloway, Arnold Allen style?
Yeah, I'm gonna cut straight to the chase with this one. I mean, I think this is a levels fight through and through. Not too long ago, we saw Imavov have a really close fight with Jared Cannonier, who I'm not talking down on Jared Cannonier at all, but just not the caliber of a striker that I would say Izzy is. And I know he fought Izzy to a close decision, and that was when Cannonier, I wouldn't say was in his prime, but he was much younger than when he fought Imavov. And the one thing about Imavov that I do like is he has that power jab that he pops out, and that's how he usually gets his rhythm. Now, the difference here is he's going to have trouble finding Izzy. I don't think he's faced someone that has the footwork and the style of Izzy, just the way you're bouncing from side to side. You can switch stances. And then more importantly, he has not faced someone with the kicking acumen of Israel Adesanya. And that's one thing that I think will play to his demise, and it's going to ultimately slow him down as this fight goes on. I do think this fight plays late and extends into the later rounds. But man, I just see Izzy piecing him up for 25 minutes and winning a very dominant decision here. Keeping him on the outside and really just dialing it down in the striking. I think Imavov may try to shoot a takedown or two here. Will he be successful? I don't know. I don't think so. He hasn't really shown the ability to run the pipe on these takedowns. So all in all, I do think that Israel Adesanya is going to come out victorious here, and this 5-inch reach advantage is going to be a big factor. Huge.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, because the way that Imavov fights, and there's a couple things to talk about that you brought up. You brought up the 5-inch reach advantage, and you also for Izzy, of course, and you also brought up the possibility of Imavov possibly mixing in some takedowns. Now, my thing about the takedowns here, look, I get it. His name's Imavov, O-V, the last 2 letters of his last name, but he doesn't really fight like that. He comes from, like I said, that same camp as Cyril Gane, and I don't want to disrespect his style and say it's kind of a karate style, because it's not, but it is kind of like a wide distance, kind of flowy kind of style. A lot of pull counters. His parrying game is on point, but like you said, very even though he does have a bounce, he is very heavy on that lead leg. We know Izzy's calf kick game is on point. But we also know that calf kicks can be used against Izzy as well. Now the question is Imavov going to try to approach it from, that area? I think I'm kind of more on your side where Nassourdine, it's mostly hands, but again, like you said, will he mix in a takedown or two? Sure, maybe. But that doesn't necessarily mean the fight's going to be over shortly after. I feel like when people saw Dricus take down Izzy and then they saw him take his back, not only are they not giving Dricus the credit he deserves, but there was just like a little technical adjustment that Izzy can make to prevent that from happening. And what happened was Izzy got taken down and he had his whizzer, his overhook. And what the whizzer and the overhook does is it prevents people from taking your back. So as soon as he let go of it, that's when Dricus took his back. So that's something your grappling coach sees. You watch the tape, you're like, hey, just don't let go of your whizzer. You're not getting your back taken there. Not to mention, I don't think Imavov has that. Look, of course, Imavov trains all areas of his game. I would not discredit him one bit, but I don't think that he has that opportunistic submission ability per se. So I do see it being a 5-round striking war. And I think that Imavov wants to prove a point that, hey, I can outstrike the great Izzy Adesanya. Now, I don't want to call it a misconception that the Sean Strickland fight was a beatdown. That's not what I'm saying. But what I do want to say is that Izzy had moments in that fight. It wasn't just pillar to post domination. Because if you really look at it, so the first round was very close until the very end when Sean dropped him. Second round, Izzy won the second round. Third round, the commentators were saying, hey, this is a very, very pedestrian third round. Could go either way. But then at the last minute of the third round, that's when Sean started, throwing in some power shots and kind of stole that third round. But then the fourth and fifth, Sean really took over, and that's where he really made his statement. So, yeah, it was one of the worst performances of Izzy's career, but I still think that if he was on such a decline, I mean, it's not like we're talking about a guy that's getting dropped by jabs. It's not like we're talking about a guy that's quitting in fights. So I don't think that the decline is as steep as people think. I just think it's more so, yeah, you'll probably never win a belt again, but I still think he can hang around in the top 5, the top 3 possibly, and initially, Mahdi, in spots like this, I do like to take the underdog who's the young, up-and-coming, hungry guy to take out someone who has seen better days. But back to the Holloway and Allen talk. Yeah, Holloway had seen better days. Yes, Holloway wasn't going to win that featherweight belt again, but Holloway was still on a completely different level than Arnold Allen, and he outclassed him as a result. And I can see that being the case here. The 5-inch reach advantage, the calf kicks, the movement, of course. And I think Nassourdine is a bit of a gasser. I know he's got some late finishes here and there, but even in that Cannonier fight, the late finish, yeah, people will discredit it, early stoppage, whatever. But hey, man, that right hand he hit him with was beautiful. And he had him wobbling all over the place. So I'm not going to discredit Nassourdine. But if you go to round 2, the commentators were mentioning that Nassourdine was putting his arms over his corner, man, visibly breathing hard. And this ain't a one-time thing. I bet on Brendan Allen against him. First round, it was looking like, oh, wow, this plus 180 is going to cash. And then Brendan Allen starts flopping to his back. So I lean towards Izzy, but I don't think I'm interested from a betting perspective. I just kind of want to see where Izzy's at, because another thing, and this might be a conspiracy theory or whatever, I can't tap into Izzy's mindset, but Mahdi, what I think, man, is that him beating Pereira the way he did, when he finally knocked out Alex Pereira, I feel like that was the mountaintop for Izzy. I feel like where do you go from there? You already have all those title defenses. You're already a 2-time champ. What else do you need to accomplish? He needed to get over the hump and finally beat his nemesis, Poatan. And now that he did it, where's the motivation? A third title run at 35? I just don't see it. So if this is Nassourdine's time, then you got to accept it. But I still think Izzy's on a slightly higher level than Nassourdine. And as a result, I'm going to pick him to win the fight, Mahdi.
Yeah, and one thing that I wanted to bring up is when Imavov fought Chris Curtis, we saw how much he slowed down too, and that towards the end of that fight, before the stoppage, the accidental clash of heads, he was huffing and puffing, and he looked visibly affected by the gas tank. And we know Chris Curtis digs to the body a lot, but I think just showing it in multiple fights, and when you see this pattern of gassing out happen in multiple fights time and time again, I just think it spells a nightmare against a guy like Izzy, who is comfortable going 25 minutes, let alone, yeah, I just think it's Adesanya here. Adesanya or pass, probably more comfortable in the same position as you, just passing.
Yeah, I want to sit back, take notes, observe, and enjoy a good fight between a legend and between a promising up and coming contender. So hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Co-main event of the evening in the middleweight division, Mahdi, because I know you're used to MVP at 170. He's actually moving up to take on Shara Magomedov. So currently they got it Shara Bullet minus 175. The comeback on MVP is plus 150. Their records are Shara's 15-0 and MVP is 22-3. I like this fight a lot for a lot of reasons. And I noticed that Michael Page is a very popular underdog this week. And I want to say something. Coming from me, who bet on Michael Venum Page in his first 2 UFC fights, against Kevin Holland, fade Kevin Holland World Tour. You already know about that. And then the next time against Ian Gary. And a lot of people, I think, are overpraising MVP's performance in that fight. Actually, yeah, it came down to one scramble at the end, but that's not the issue that I had. Here's the issue I had. Watch his fight with Kevin Holland. Watch how goddamn fast he looked. Also, pay attention to the fact that he had no ankle braces on in that fight, looked fully healthy. Then fast forward to the Ian Gary fight. All of a sudden, MVP's got 2 braces on. And for his standard, I thought he was throwing a little sloppy, man. I thought that he was like winging shots, which is like not something I'm used to with MVP. And the reason I'm bringing this up, Mahdi, is because MVP is not some spring chicken. I get it. He's only 1-1 in the UFC. So most 1-1 guys are like, what, 22 to 27 years old? This guy's 37 years old, right? He had a long career outside the UFC, for those that don't know. And although, him slowing down is still faster than a lot of guys, but I saw a difference in speed in this fight versus Holland and in this fight versus Ian Gary. Now let's take it a step further, Mahdi. Now he's got to put on 15 extra pounds. Well, it's not put on 15 extra. It's just not cut those extra 15 pounds, which I think as an aging fighter and, probably a little bit less road work for this fight, I think that MVP, I think it's perfectly fine to say that he might be a little bit slower carrying that extra weight. Might be dealing with injuries. The fact that he had 2 knee braces, 2 ankle braces the last fight, had nothing the Holland fight. So I would actually not be surprised to see a slow, not so. I'm not saying he's going to be fucking stuck in the mud or any shit like that. This ain't no tortoise versus the hare type stuff, but I'm just saying I expect MVP to be a little bit slower than people expect. And with Shara Bullet, I'm a big fan of his kicking game. And for whatever reason, he's one of these guys that people love to fade for whatever weird reason. I don't understand the reason. Maybe they're worried about his ground game. MVP, look, I know MVP shot against Paul Daly a couple times, and if anyone's going to shoot here, I actually do think it'll be MVP. But man, I think Shara is a little bit actually underrated, not overrated. People say he's overrated. I disagree. I think he's underrated. I mean, he's put up over 100 significant strikes in multiple UFC fights. The knockout he just had over Armen Petrosian, like, you don't just do Armen Petrosian like that. Armen Petrosian also has a long, like, very extensive kickboxing background. So to do a guy like that, and he had to overcome adversity, make adjustments in that fight, I think this kid's the real deal. And honestly, I don't think he's gonna like knock out Page. Watch that happen. I don't think he's gonna knock out Page. I just think he's gonna outwork him. Lots of leg kicks, more output, and let's see how the judges favor it. But I'm gonna go Shara Bullet here as a favorite.
Yeah, this one it's close. You're right. A lot of people are on the MVP side here, and I can see why. Shara is shown to be very hittable. His striking defense is not all that impressive, and I think you just have to worry about Michael Venum Page moving up a weight class here. It's tough to imagine he won't be affected by the extra pounds that he's carrying in terms of speed, and then given that he's gaining the 15 pounds in this fight, I think Shara is going to be able to land those leg kicks a little bit more effectively than most had fared at a 170 with MVP, just because that lack of movement's going to really be affected, in my opinion. All in all, I do say that Shara will have some success, and if MVP is, it's just such a hard fight to even sum up into a couple of words. I don't know. I really struggled with this one, to be honest with you, Dan.
Who do you got?
I'm gonna say MVP here just due
Okay.
to the experience. But all in all, I think this is a coin flip fight. Uh, Dog or pass.
Well, if you view it that way, then you got to go MVP. If it's
Yeah.
truly a coin flip, then I agree with you.
Yeah, I was trying to type up something for this fight specifically, and it was very difficult. Even when I was taping it, I kept flip flopping back and forth. Just MVP with the speed, is it going to be affected, or is Shara going to be able to take advantage of just being maybe a little bit bigger? MVP does have that reach advantage as well. So 6 inches in reach is a lot, similar to the Izzy reach advantage in the last fight. So that could play a factor too.
What's the age difference? I'm about to pull that up.
Age difference is 7 years. Yeah, 30 and 37. On the dot, actually.
Okay, nice. All right. Well, you got MVP. I got Shara. May the best man win. Now, next up in the heavyweight division, we got a matchup between Sergey Pavlovich. He's minus
Here
three.
we go.
He's minus 325, taking on Jairzinho Rozenstruik, who's plus 275. Now, as far as their records, Sergey Pavlovich 18-3, Jairzinho Rozenstruik 15-5. You sounded excited when I brought up this fight, so take it away, my friend.
Yeah, I was mentioning to you at the beginning of this show, there was a dog that I really liked, and it's this one. I think Jairzinho has a pretty good chance at outlasting Pavlovich in this one. I mean, we've seen Pavlovich in all of his wins. I mean, usually a round of cardio, maybe a round and a half, and if he doesn't get that KO, he visibly slows down. And Jairzinho just fought someone in Tai Tuivasa who I'm not going to say who fights identically to Pavlovich, but they have similar tendencies where they're going to throw wide and they're going to throw heavy. And if they land one, they're going to seriously hurt you. I think the only difference is that with Pavlovich, he's going to be putting the pressure on, whereas Tai Tuivasa is more lenient on accepting the pressure and being the one on the back foot. But I do think that Jairzinho's speed is going to give Pavlovich a lot of trouble here. And as long as he can stay safe in the early going in the first round to round and a half, 2 rounds, I think that this is Rozenstruik's fight to lose. So for me, I think this is going to be a sneaky Jairzinho decision. That's my prediction. I will be betting him on the money line. So give me Jairzinho, man.
I love the boldness. And you're going to be on an island, which is great. That's usually one of the best places to be, right? You know, these big Vegas casinos weren't built off everyone being on the same side. So that's great to see. And I am on the opposite side, but don't let that discourage you. Please bet, you know, who you want to bet. But I'm on the other side as a pick, not as a bet. So, you know, I'm rooting for you. But I actually faded Pavlovich's last 2 fights against Tom Aspinall. I don't remember the odds. Was it minus 125 or was it plus 125? Either way, bet on Aspinall, and then I bet on Volkov at plus 180 odds. I feel like both those guys are just on a different level than Jairzinho. What I do like about Jairzinho, of course, those leg kick counters, those leg kick returns are nasty. And if you want to play kind of like a slow-paced kickboxing match with him, I mean, ask Overeem when his lip was hanging on the other side of his head about how that goes, you know? And also, on a side note, when are we going to see Derek Lewis versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik? Like, why has this matchup evaded us for like so long? Like, dude, like make that fight. Like, we want to see that fight for years. I'm not complaining about this fight. This fight's fucking sick, but I'm just saying I want to see Derek and I want to see the Black Beast and Biggie Boy run it for years. But listen, man, I think that there's a big size advantage for Sergey. I know they got Jairzinho listed 6'2". The only reason I might question that is you see some of the face-offs he's in, and he looks significantly shorter than that. I mean, I don't think I'm not acting like he's 5'8", but I think 6'1" at most, 6'1" at most. Whereas you're dealing with like a dude in Pavlovich who's like 6'4", and then to take it a step further, Pavlovich has a 6-inch reach advantage. So you think that Jairzinho is the faster guy. So that might be actually interesting if that's true in terms of him closing the distance. But man, I think that this is one where Sergey gets back on track. And I think you might see him actually come out here and starch Biggie Boy. So may the best man win.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if early Pavlovich is, that's his, his MO.
Oh, and let me say something. The only pushback I'll give you, and granted, you can also give some pushback to what I'm about to say. So what I'm about to say is, you mentioned how usually when he gets past the first round, things don't look as good. Outside the UFC, he actually went 5 rounds before. So he won, so I don't think he's first round or bust, but obviously you can counter me and say, yeah, that was outside the UFC. Welcome to the big show, kid. So I get it, bro. But I'm not entirely convinced he's first round or bust. Like, yeah, that last fight he lost, that went past the first round, but he was still in there all 3 rounds. He was just with a superior man. So I don't think he's just going to fall off a cliff if he gets extended, but he could fall off a cliff if he gets, hit on the button. So yeah, let's see what happens. Now,
we will see.
Now, this one I'm very excited about because
yeah.
next up in the bantamweight division, we got a matchup between Saeed Nurmagomedov. He's minus 170, taking out Vinicius, Lokdog, Oliveira, who's plus 145. Now, as far as their records are concerned, Saeed is 18-3, Vinicius is 21-3. So these are some seasoned vets. The only thing is more people have been exposed to Saeed because he's been in the UFC, but one thing I always tell y'all is when I watch Contender Series, I don't just watch the fight. I always go back to the end of the show to hear why Dana did or didn't sign someone, because it's not just Dana. It's also very highly influenced by Hunter, Mick, and Sean. Like, it's basically, yeah. So one thing that Dana said about Lokdog was, hey, I feel like this is a kid that we can throw in the mix right now with real guys. And that's what they've done. Ricky Simone in your second UFC fight, like Ricky Simone has a win over the current UFC bantamweight champion, Merab Dvalishvili. And Lokdog schooled him for 3 rounds. Like, it was pretty impressive. Yeah, Simone might have had an injury. Fighters are always injured. I'm not going to make excuses. Like, that was your second UFC fight, and you handled a perennial top 15 guy easily. So I think he's ready for the step up in competition. I got to give Saeed Nurmagomedov a lot of credit. I truly believe that Saeed Nurmagomedov has some of the fastest spin attacks in the entire sport. But I'm very impressed with Lokdog. There's obviously the one hitter quitter knockouts, whether it's with his hands like on Contender Series, whether it's that flying knee in the Sopai fight, whether it's all the highlights he put on his regional scene. Like, this guy deserves this spot. So with Saeed Nurmagomedov, I view him as one of the fastest and most efficient spinning attack artists in the entire sport. Like, this dude's spinning back fist and spinning back kick are absolutely insane. Look what he did to Ricardo Ramos with that spinning back kick, and look at what he's done to a bunch of other guys with that spinning back fist. And then you feel like, shit, I don't want to strike at range with this guy because those spins are coming out of nowhere. How about I shoot a takedown on him? And then this guy has the nastiest front chokes probably in that division. So yeah, Saeed, there's a lot to be reckoned with him. My issue with Saeed is that I don't want to call his game limited, because I think that would actually be very unfair to discredit someone who's been in the UFC this long, who's had the kind of results he's had, and who's as technically skilled as he is. But when I say that, this is what I mean. He's going to come out in that first round. He's going to be spinning hard. He's going to be throwing some very explosive moves. But when the fight really progresses and both guys are tired and it's time to start digging deep, everything that Saeed throws is so fast, so explosive. That stuff is taxing, bro. Like, to just only spin. Like, if this guy was fighting behind his jab, methodical low kicks, 1-2s, just like fundamental type stuff, I wouldn't have an issue. But when every strike you throw is a super fast, explosive spin, hey, listen, Lokdog's been knocked out before on his regional scene. Maybe you come out here, spin kick or spin fist, knock him out, or maybe you rock him, get him to shoot a sloppy shot, and you front choke him. But my thing is, every single time Saeed Nurmagomedov has been past round 1, excuse me, things have gotten sketchy. The Douglas Silva D'Andrade fight. A lot of people thought that Douglas may have arguably won that fight, but regardless, for the price tag that Saeed was in that fight, he certainly did not cover it. Then the fight with Saeed Yakub Kakramanov, like, Saeed Yakub was given Saeed Nurmagomedov a tour of the octagon until the very opportunistic finish. And that opportunistic finish was as a result of Saeed Yakub is literally trying to grind this man out, whereas Lokdog is going to try to keep this at distance. So I think the first round, Saeed probably wins. I think the first round, the speed difference, this and that. But Lokdog can get this to that second, third round and take Saeed to that place. That's where I think that Lokdog is going to start to feel a little bit more comfortable letting his hands go, letting his kicks go, putting that pressure on, and eventually wilting Saeed Nurmagomedov. Now, while I can't confidently say it's going to be a finish, I think that that Lokdog can win a decision here. Now, in normal times, I'd say no guy named Nurmagomedov is losing a judge's decision in Saudi Arabia. But man, firstly, although his last name is Nurmagomedov, and although he's extremely talented, he's not part of that camp. He wasn't training with Islam and Khabib and Umar and Usman and all those incredible fighters. Not that he's not training with other badass fighters, but I'm just saying, you see that last name, you might think certain things, but he's not part of that camp. And I'm not even sure he's actually related to them. I think they just have the same last name. I don't think he's his cousin like all the other guys. But that's neither here nor there. The only reason I brought that up was because of the whole, a little tongue-in-cheek, no guy named Nurmagomedov's losing a judge's decision in Abu Dhabi. But I think that Lokdog can make it definitive enough in those second and third rounds where there is no choice but to give Lokdog the decision. And if he wants to get one of his brutal knockouts along the way, I'm cool with that too. But back to my point about things getting sketchy when Saeed goes past round one. This is not just the Saeed Yakub fight. This is not just the Douglas Silva de Andrade fight. What about his debut against Justin Scoggins, where a lot of people thought that Scoggins may have got robbed? Now, I wasn't one of those people, but the reason I'm bringing up that fight is because it further proves that every time fights get extended, shit gets sketchy. Now, what about the Jonathan Martinez fight? Jonathan unanimously won the second and third round because Saeed slowed down badly after the first. So, yeah, you don't want to slow down against the Lokdog, man. So I took Lokdog at plus 155. I risked 2 units on it. All respect to Saeed. Let's get it. And one last thing before you go. Vinicius, Lokdog Oliveira, has experience fighting in the UAE. So this is not going to be like new territory for him where he's not used to the time difference. He's not the heat or this or not. This guy's ready. Like Dana said, we can throw this guy in the mix right now. That's what they're doing. And I'm going to take him for the upset.
Yeah, I love it. Here's the thing. We still don't know really how good this guy Oliveira is, but one thing we can say for a fact is this guy brings the chaos into the ring at all times. And his cardio is one of the most impressive things because even through all of the chaos and through that pressure that he brings in and out, the cardio still holds up. And against a guy like Saeed, who has shown to, have that tendency to slow down in the later rounds, that's where Oliveira could find an opportunistic finish, could just take over the fight, win a decision. Now he will have to watch out for the nasty front choke series from Saeed, because if Oliveira attempts a takedown, which I don't think he will do, but say the fight on the feet is not going according to his plan or it's just not going his way, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he would not shoot takedowns here. So the front choke finish is live for Saeed. I think Saeed could land a knockout here too, and I think both guys can land knockouts.
Honestly, Mahdi, I think a spin knockout is more likely for Saeed than a choke. That's my opinion.
Absolutely, because I do think, and to that point, I do think this fight more often than not plays out as a 15-minute striking match. So given that, I would say if you could find a good line on fight ends in KO, I would consider. I can't pick a side. I mean, I would say Oliveira at the current odds, plus 150, plus 155 is a good bet. But personally, I'm looking at fight doesn't go at minus 110. I think there's multiple different outcomes for a finish in this fight, and I wouldn't be surprised if either guy gets a finish here. Just given the pressure that Oliveira brings, plus Nurmagomedov potentially gassing, Oliveira's striking defense is not all that good. And then you have a guy inside Nurmagomedov with the flashy stuff early on. He could land something big. So for me, I'm more interested in the fight doesn't go, but I do like your bet at plus 155.
Yes, sir. Let's get it. So next up in the lightweight division, we got one of the best fights on the entire card. We got
Oh, yeah.
Mike Beast Boy Davis. He's minus 140, taking on Fares the Smile Killer Ziam, who's plus 120. And their records are Ziam 16-4, Mike Davis 11-2. Incredible fight because Mahdi, I think that both these guys can be in the top 15 one day. I think one difference, if you're going to make a case for Davis, is you can say, well, listen, Davis is flat out in his prime right now, 32 years old. Now's the time for him to make his run. And you could say, well, Ziam's only 27, takes a step back here, he can get right back in the mix and be in the top 15, top 10 one day. So that's one thing people could say, but I don't care about all that. What I care about is how do they match up stylistically? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, we have a guy in Ziam who in the past has shown some pretty poor takedown defense. And with all due respect, I mean, we know that Claudio Puelles is not landing 7 takedowns on any other UFC fighter in the roster, but he landed 7 on Fares Ziam, and that's just a bad look. Puelles
to his credit, he got up 7 times.
He did get up 7 times, but he still got taken down 7 times against a guy who is not really known for his wrestling like that. So that's a big concern, especially going up against Mike Davis, who can wrestle and can wrestle effectively and has shown it in the octagon over multiple rounds. So I do think that if Mike Davis employs a wrestle-heavy game plan here, that he could find a lot of success. Now, one thing that really impressed me was Ziam's aggressiveness in the fight against Frivola. That was the one thing that was sort of missing with Ziam's game, and everyone just kind of questioned where did the finishes go with Ziam. And ever since he got into the UFC, it was just decision over decision and for decision, and then it just came up out of nowhere. He took, I believe it was a year off leading up to that fight, and he was able to find that knockout against Matt Frivola. All in all, I do think this is a really close fight. I do pick Mike Davis to get the win here with the wrestling. I just think that he can find more control time situations on the ground than the fight stays standing. So I picked Davis here, but not confident at all. I do like how Ziam keeps his distance, though. So that could give Davis trouble in the early going until he lands that first and second takedown.
Yeah. So I agree with you about the takedowns for sure. You know, you're dealing with a brown belt in Davis, taking on a purple belt in Ziam. And Davis is a brown belt under Julian Williams, who is an absolute stud. Julian Williams is one of the best non-Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belts in the Southeast. And Julian Williams actually was pretty close to getting to the UFC. The only reason they didn't let him was because I think he was like 37, 38 at the time. So they just told him he was a little bit too old. But like, he's got wins over UFC vets, and he's brought a lot of awesome fighters in the UFC. He's responsible for bringing Mike Perry in, 2 fighters on this card, Lucas Alexander. And I know he's got more fighters on his roster too. So shout out Julian Williams. Like, he's only 42 years old. Like, for a fighter, sure, that's old, but for like a coach, that's young. And yeah, he's a guy you got to look out for as far as developing good prospects, man. And he's a serious black belt. So to earn a brown belt under Julian Williams, that means Mike Davis has a real legitimate brown belt, because he could go to other gyms and already be a black belt. You got to earn that shit against a guy like, you know, under a guy like Julian Williams. So I really respect that. And with Ziam, I mean, I've been telling y'all for years that I think this kid has a lot of potential. What you got to understand is he came to the UFC at like 21, 22 years old. Like, he was just a kid. Now he's like 27. He's a grown-ass man, and he's got a lot of great attributes. I've been saying for years, I've been waiting for that first Ziam knockout in the UFC, and he got it. Now, it was a knee, which is great. It was still a knockout regardless, but like, I've been waiting for him to get a knockout with hands. I've been waiting for him to smack someone with that right hand and put them down. But I was glad to see that knee. So hopefully that gives him the confidence that, hey, you can finish fights at this level. You are making these big improvements every single fight. And now you're ready for this matchup here. This is what you consider a top 15 showdown in terms of, yeah, they're not top 15 now, but the winner is either going to be in the top 15, you know, come next week, or one more fight and they're in the top 15. So this is literally, yeah. The only thing is that like Davis kind of has to make his moves now, whereas Ziam has more time. But as far as how they match up, like stylistically, I agree with you in terms of Davis getting in that, mixing in those takedowns, trying to get a lot of top control. We've seen like the Pulis fight, even early in the Frivola fight. You do have to give Ziam credit. He's gotten a lot better on the mat since the Terrance McKinney days. Like apparently he's been putting his gi on. He got his purple belt. Like he's been taking things seriously. So you'd love to see that. So then you look at the stats and you see how Davis has way more output than Ziam, but that's a little bit tricky. And that's a little bit not misleading. You just need to look into that, a little bit more attentively. And what I mean by that is that, okay, so sure, he does land more volume than Ziam, but he also gets hit a shit ton more than Ziam. And in order to have that kind of output against a guy like Ziam, you're going to have to leave a lot of openings along the way. And you're going to have to close a serious distance with the length of this guy. And that's where I think that there could be a knee waiting up the middle for Mike Davis. That's where I think that the long jab, counter it with a straight right, mix in some calf kicks. Because you look at Mike Davis's two all-time classic fights, right? The Sodiq Yusuff fight on Contender Series and the Mason Jones fight in the UFC. And I mean, are those not two like the sickest fights you've seen, man?
Absolute classics.
But what happened in the Sodiq fight was the calf kicks were a huge factor for Sodiq Yusuff in that fight. And then in the Mason Jones fight, although Davis won that fight, there were he was eating a lot of unnecessary shots. And Mason Jones is kind of more of a brawler, whereas Ziam more finesse, more technical, more pretty with his striking. I think he can find a lot of spots. So I think both guys are going to have moments. Now, normally when a line moves this much, right? And I would have been interested at that plus 210, that plus 180, whatever. But I honestly think the line movement's right. I feel like y'all did a really good job. Like if you can beat a line by like $1 or whatever the case is now, like what it went from like plus 210 to plus 110. I see plus 120, a little comebacks, a little buyback came in, but like, yeah, I feel like people were on the right side of that. Now how it plays out, this is such a volatile fight in my humble opinion, because both these guys are so good. It's just, do you think that Davis is right now in his prime, whereas Ziam has a couple more years to catch up, or are all the improvements that Ziam's been making enough to set back someone like Mike Davis? So when I'm not sure in a situation like this, I take the dog, and I'm going to take the dog here. And one could actually make an argument that this fight still holds value on Ziam despite the huge line movement. Reason I say that is because when I watched tape on it, my takeaway was like, if I'm the book, I'm charging you minus 115 a piece on these guys. So yeah, the line moved by a mile, but there's still a little bit of there's still a little comeback on Ziam. So yeah, I'm gonna be very interested to see how it plays out. You got Davis, I got Ziam. May the best man win, because like I want to see both these guys in the top 15 this time next year, Mahdi. Like just straight up, that's just where I'm at with it. I love them both,
Yeah, the issue with Mike Davis has always just been the injuries and inactivity.
And I don't want to disrespect him and say he has a Kevin Holland attitude, because that's bullshit. That's fake news. He's not saying shit like, I don't care about this fight and I don't care what happens. And all. He's not disrespecting legends. But one thing he is saying that is kind of Kevin Holland-esque is that, like I'd rather be a streamer. Like I don't need a fight. I fight because I'm good at it, not because I enjoy it. But that being said, talk is cheap, and fighters, they got all kinds of all kinds of stuff going on upstairs. So he could say all that and then still come out and starch or choke out Ziam. So like talk is cheap. But yeah, may the best man win. I'll go Ziam. You got Davis. Let's see what happens.
Excited for this one. Yeah, it is one of the more exciting fights on the card. I've been looking forward to it. There's a lot of sleeper fights on this card, man.
There sure are. Hey, guys, I want to give a huge shout out to today's sponsor, Bet105. They're an emerging crypto sports book that doesn't limit winners, plays the game the right way, and has fast and easy payouts. Now, one thing I really like about them that separates them is, check this out. Y'all know how split decisions and the judging is truly ruining the sport. Well, Bet105 are offering a deal that I've never seen any sports book do, and that's called split decision insurance. So if your fighter wins by split decision, all good. You win, you get your money, no big deal. But if your fighter loses by split decision, you get 25% back of your loss. Like, that's pretty damn unheard of, and actually should give you a little bit more comfortable entering those precarious spots with the state of judging in current MMA. Now, another cool thing that Bet 105 are doing is their parlay boost. So for every 3-leg parlay, you're going to get a 15% odds boost. I mean, who doesn't want to get 15% better odds if you're a parlay player? So I think those two offers are pretty incredible, especially the split decision insurance. I've never heard of that before. I've heard of boost before, but hey, screw it. Go get yourself a 15% boost on those parlays. But the split decision insurance is something that separates Bet 105 from everyone else. So the way y'all hit them up is you click the link in the description. That way, when you sign up, you support Half the Battle too. So thank you, Bet 105, for supporting Half the Battle. Thank you to the fans. And also, big thing, give me feedback, because I give these guys direct feedback from what y'all say, and they tailor and adjust the game accordingly. You know, this is supposed to be a user-friendly experience, and this is where the pros play. So make sure y'all check out Bet 105. Click the link in the description. And thank you very much, Bet 105, for supporting today's episode of Half the Battle. Next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Muhammad Naimov. He's minus 285, taking on Kaan Ofli, who's plus 245. And the records, Muhammad Naimov, 11-3, taking on 11-3. Hey, I like it. Similar records. Naimov, man, I got to give him a lot of credit, dude. Like, from going from a dude that lost to Colin Anglin on Contender Series, who, like, Colin Anglin, like, yeah, I don't know if y'all saw his UFC run, but if you haven't, go pull up what Sean Woodson did to him. And who was the other one? Was it Melsick Bagdasarian that fucked him up too? I think it was. I think it was Melsick.
So
yeah.
Let me double check on this.
Yeah,
but go ahead.
I got you. So y'all pull up those two fights and let me know what y'all thought. But man, so Muhammad Naimov, he comes off that Colin Anglin fight. We're like, yeah, this shit ain't gonna pan out. But you know, went back to the regional scene, put in a lot of work, and he's come out there and he's got some good wins under his belt and some good performances. You know, obviously, if you can come into the UFC, like, Jamie Malarkey is a tough out. Like, I get it. His chin's a little suspect, but like, Jamie Malarkey, you got to understand, that's the guy that fought Volkanovski on his regional scene. That's the guy. He's beat some legit guys in the UFC. He beat Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson has a win over Dustin Poirier by first round knockout. Like, he's beat some guys, but Naimov comes in there and starches this man. Then he gets the Nathaniel Wood fight. Like, hey, you're fighting Nathaniel Wood in your second UFC fight. Like, Nathaniel Wood is very, very experienced. Nathaniel Wood has been ranked top 15 in 2 different weight classes. Like, actually, did Nathaniel Wood used to fight at flyweight? What was that fight against John Dodson at flyweight or bantamweight? It must have been bantamweight, right? There's no way this dude made flyweight, right?
No, there's no way it was flyweight.
Yeah. Okay. So when he fought John Dawson, who is a flyweight, it was actually a bantamweight. Okay. So never mind. But what I'm trying to say is this man has been ranked in the top 15 in 2 separate weight classes, Nathaniel Wood. And if you're not quite on the level, Nathaniel Wood puts clinics on guys straight up. And Muhammad Naimov was out there hurting him, was out there doing his thing. I know there were some dirty moves, but whatever. I mean, if the ref doesn't notice it, like, guys, when we're betting on fights, we're not here to take moral high ground. Like, if my fighter is going to low blow the guy I bet against, I mean, I feel bad for him as a human, but as a betting man, fuck it. Like, let's get any advantage we can get. And Naimov got past that test. Then, you know, he ran through some random. We don't got to talk about that. But then the Felipe Lima fight. A lot of people consider Felipe Lima to be one of the best prospects in the sport. And the scorecards were all over the place going into that 3rd round. Felipe got that 3rd round finish. But here with Kaan Ofli, I don't want to be disrespectful, but I'm not convinced he belongs in the big show. You know, he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's got some opportunistic submissions, but like, I don't see that requisite athleticism and kind of umph in his game. And just like, yeah, I kind of see this being his last UFC fight. I wouldn't mind being proven wrong, because it feels bad to put caps on, you know, people's dreams and shit like that. But I'm just being honest with my opinion. And I think Muhammad Naimov wins this fight and covers his price tag.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair to say. Just strength of schedule alone points all the way to Naimov. Ofli last time out just pretty much got handled by Mayra and Santos, got knocked out brutally.
Brutally.
And I think the same is going to happen here, but I think it's going to happen earlier. I think this fight ends in the first round, and Naimov just gets a highlight KO. I just think Naimov is the much better fighter wherever this fight goes. In the grappling, I don't think Ofli is going to be able to land takedowns here, and I think Naimov might be able to land takedowns of his own. But what I actually think is going to happen is Naimov is going to keep this fight on the feet and light this kid up. With all due respect, I agree with your take on this guy probably not belonging in the big show yet. So it's Naimov all day, and yeah, I do think he covers his price tag here. So I'm calling round 1 KO, but I don't think that's a hot take.
And next up in the heavyweight division, we got a matchup between Shamil Gaziev, or is it Gaziev? He's minus 330. He's taking on Thomas Jefferson Peterson, who's plus 270. And the records are Shamil 13-1, Thomas Jefferson Peterson 9-2. What do you think? Because Gaziev, like, I don't want to judge him too harshly off the Jairzinho fight. Reason being is this: like, you're going from fighting these mid-tier guys to, hey, now you're fighting a guy who's been in the top 5, like a guy who like has beat multiple former world champions. Like, yeah, like there's levels to this shit, and he just wasn't ready. But I feel like, you know, something like that, an experience like that, could possibly elevate him to that next level. Hey, you saw what it looks like to face someone in the top 10. Go back to the drawing board. It's been a while since then, and work on your game. And hopefully that's what he's done. And on the other side with Thomas Peterson, I also think that he's a work in progress. You know, I wasn't quite sure if I thought he won that Muhammad Usman fight, but that's neither here nor there. He's a heavyweight wrestler. He's a tough-nosed guy and a lower volume on the feet. Will try to mix in an opportunistic takedown. When he gets on top of you, he's super heavy on top, knows how to win fights. This is an interesting one, especially with the odds. How do you kind of view it?
Yeah, if we look back to the Contender Series fight with Gaziev actually got taken down and had his back taken for, I want to say it was like a minute, and he was in quite some danger as a huge favorite. And I'm not saying Peterson's going to do it, but I'm not going to say at the same time that it's out of the realm of possibility that Peterson lands a takedown. And, you know, if he does land a takedown in round 1, how does this fight look? Because it's no longer a 5-round fight like when Gaziev fought Rozenstruik. So I don't think the gas tank issues are going to be as prominent, I would say. And he's not facing someone with as much speed and as much volume as Jairzinho. So I think that maybe the gas tank holds up, but if he does get taken down in round 1, this could get very interesting. And that's where, like, you know, that 4 to 6 minute gas tank, if it is true with Gaziev, it's going to spell trouble, especially at this price tag. So I do see why people are laying the chalk and parlaying this guy up. And yeah, the most likely outcome is going to be a round 1 knockout. Sure.
Is it?
That's the thing. Is it? I do think that Peterson has a chance to land a takedown in this first round while they're fresh. And if he does, I think this fight flips on its head. You'll start seeing Gaziev slow down and not be able to weather the storm as much. And then one more takedown in round 2, then you're in trouble. And Peterson does have some really good top pressure and top control. But my issue with Peterson is he just lacks the speed. And I think that's where this fight really takes a turn. Gaziev is going to be the much faster striker, and he throws straight shots, which is another thing that I like. So I do think Gaziev wins, but do I parlay him at these odds? Hell no. I say stay far away.
Yeah. You know, initially I was on the, not betting wise, but just pick wise on the Gaziev side. He has fought better level of competition, but when you look at the stats, Peterson fights at a higher pace than Gaziev, and Gaziev is Gaziev. He's a big time gasser. That wasn't just a one time thing in the Rozenstruik fight. And also, you want to talk about something that's kind of alarming. So, off the top of your head, what round did the Rozenstruik fight end in?
I believe it was the 4th.
Correct.
It was a retirement.
It was the 4th. And let me ask you this: in 4 rounds of fighting, how many significant strikes did Shamil Gaziev land?
He probably, from memory, it was all mainly in round 1. This was close to, was it 49 or 59? I think I'm getting it mixed up.
So I'm glad you said 49. I'm glad you said 59 because those would be considered like average numbers, like nothing special, just kind of lower on the lower side, right? Okay, you ready? 22 significant strikes in within 4 rounds. That is not good. Now, granted, the striker he was up against, I wouldn't want to let my hands go against that guy either. Maybe he feels a little more comfortable letting his hands go against Thomas Jefferson Peterson. But the reason I bring that up, and yeah, you could say, hey, context. He was in there with Jairzinho, but okay, against Dontel Mays, he only landed 31 significant strikes there. The most he's landed was against Martin Boudet. That was a beatdown. So, yeah, I don't know. I really don't know on this one. Like, I'm not planting my flag on the dog because I think, again, this is a fat, sloppy heavyweight we're talking about. Taking on another fat, sloppy heavyweight. The only difference is the one is minus 330 because I don't want to be disrespectful and say because of his name. His name. Do you think if his name was Shamil Johnson that he'd be minus 330 in the spot? And serious question, like, are the skill gaps really that far, or is it the, hey, we're in Saudi, his name's Shamil Gaziev, who the fuck is this other guy? Like, is that what it is, or is it legitimately based on the skills, or both?
No, it's got to be off the name. I don't think skill set wise they're too far apart. The striking, I would say there is a gap. I mean, we're gonna talk about this guy in a couple of fights, but Thomas Peterson lost to Jamal Pogues, and Jamal Pogues is mainly just a jab merchant. So I don't know what to think about that.
Oh, and then there's the size difference. So Shamil, he's got 3 inches of height, he's got 4 inches of reach. So, but they're the same size weight wise. But then again, I'd prefer my wrestler to be the shorter, stockier guy. So fuck, dude. I have no idea. So in these cases, we can flip a coin. we can say, no, if I'm gonna bet this fight, I'm gonna take the dog. But I'm just saying for pure pick, we can flip a coin. Who's got the bigger head and who's got the bigger tail?
I gotta be Gaziev for both.
All right, let's go Gaziev with the head, and let's go with Peterson with the tails.
I mean that beard gives him an extra 1.5.
Oh shit! We got the tails. I'm gonna go Thomas Peterson. I'm gonna go Thomas Jefferson Peterson for the upset. Let's see what happens.
Let's get these dogs barking.
Now, next up in the lightweight division, we got a matchup between Terrance McKinney, is minus 470. The comeback on Damir Hadzovic is plus 370. As far as their records, Terrance McKinney 15-7, Damir 14-7. This is interesting because I remember like it was yesterday when Damir first came into the UFC. He fought Mairbek Taisumov, got slept, but then he fought Marcin Held, and he was like a plus 265 dog or plus 365 dog, and I bet him in that fight, and he's losing the entire fight, bro, the entire fight. And then in the 3rd round, Marcin Held goes for an ill-advised Imanari roll, and he catches a massive knee and gets knocked out by Hadzovic, and I cashed that dog bet and went crazy. But since then, Hadzovic has been hit and miss, man. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but he's 38 years old now at this point. And but then again, you look back a couple fights ago against Yancy Medeiros, and like the volume he put up in that fight, like, hey, if you put up that volume here, I actually think you win. Because the thing about Terrance McKinney, similar to another fighter we talked about earlier on the card, every single time that Terrance McKinney has been past round 1, shit has got sketchy. Now let me ask you something. Let me look this up so I know exactly what I'm talking about. All right. Two pieces of trivia for you, right? You ready for this?
Let's do it.
So Terrance McKinney has a grand total of 22 professional fights, correct?
Mm-hmm.
In those 22 professional fights, how many of them have gone the distance? Just guess. Just guess.
Guy's never gone a distance.
Exactly. Never gone the distance. All right. Now you ready for the next piece of trivia?
Okay.
Let me just double check real quick before I say something.
That's a trick question. Never.
Before I ask you something that's total bullshit. Okay. Now, Mr. McKinney has 15 wins. All 15 wins are finishes. How many of those 15 wins are in the first round?
The wins, I believe they're all in the first round.
So they're all in the first round except one. He had one fight that he won via heel hook in round 3 in 2018. So besides that, Terrance McKinney has never won a fight that's gone past the first round. Now, that being said, you ready for some more trivia? How many takedowns has Damir Hadzovic given up in his UFC career? Just guess.
UFC career. He's had,
UFC career.
Was it 8 fights in total?
Yeah, let's just say 8 to 10 fights.
8 to 10 fights in total. I don't think he's wait. Let's just call it at 8 takedowns.
That's it? Because I didn't mark DeCasey take him down 8 times in just that one fight alone.
I don't include that fight. That one
Okay.
that's cheating.
You ready?
Yeah.
30 takedowns given up in his entire UFC career. So it's unfortunate because what's probably going to happen here is Terrance is going to take him down one time, and the fight is probably going to be over shortly after. Now, the thing about that, though, the reason I can't lay minus 470 on no Terrance McKinney, not only is he coming off a brutal ass knockout loss, but like this ain't the first time this shit has happened either. We're talking about a dude that's been knocked out 5 times, that's been submitted twice. This guy's been finished 7 times. So, you know, you lay that price, Damir gets his back taken, but he survives somehow. Now it's round 2. Now Terrance McKinney loses all composure. I'm just saying, man, historically speaking, Damir has had way higher output, way better durability. And it's just straight up tougher. But that being said, I think there's a matchup where Terrance probably comes in there, takes him down one time, takes his back, chokes him out, fight's over. But like I said, you cannot lay that price on Terrance. You got to see what happens. If it gets past round 1, you got to see how Terrance, is he breathing hard in the corner? Is he starting to put his head down? They got the towel on his head. Like, you gotta pay very close attention. But I am not interested at McKinney at this price, but I'll pick him as a pure pick.
Yeah, I don't blame you for that assessment. I mean, we all know what McKinney's advantage here in this fight is. It's going to be the wrestling and submission game, and if by any means he stands with Hadzovic, he's given him his easiest path to victory, and it's going to be McKinney's. I'm not going to say it's his hardest path, but it's not one where it would be suitable to attack, if that makes sense. On the feet, Hadzovic can definitely land his own, and McKinney is a very hittable martial artist.
Very chinny, but
very chinny too.
Very powerful too.
Yeah, he's kill or be killed through and through. So we all know what we're getting on the McKinney side, and Hadzovic, man, we haven't seen this guy in such a long time.
I know.
We just don't know what we're gonna get. It's been exactly 2 years and 6 months since he fought DeCasey. So what led to that layoff? I have not really looked into why he's been out for that long, but it's never good. So obviously, pure pick, I'm going to say McKinney, but I'm never going to lay that line. Never, especially with a guy like McKinney.
Next up in the women's flyweight division, we got a matchup between Jasmine and Vinicius. She's minus 235, taking on Mayra Shitara Bueno Silva, who's plus 200. And their records, my friend, are they actually got the same amount of fights. Jasmine 12-3, Mayra, it says 10-4-1, but she definitely choked out Holly Holm, so she's 11-4 in my book. I know what I saw with my own 2 eyes. And the thing she tested positive for was like a ADD medication, like
give me Adderall.
Yeah, like come on, dude. Like one time when I was in college or high school or something, I don't remember. I took an Adderall once and I went to the gym, bro. It felt like my heart was about to fucking explode and beat out my chest. Like I was like, oh, I'm never doing this again. So yeah, it did not give me any benefits whatsoever. It gassed me out within 2 seconds, made me hate my life. So yeah, I never did that again. But I'm just saying, so people were like acting like Shitara was using some kind of PED. I thought that was total bullshit. But
Mhm.
this is a tough one. I did not expect Mayra to drop down to 25 again. Reason being is this, brother. So she got her title shot, fought Raquel Pennington. And the morning of that fight, one of my guys texted me and was like, hey, bro, Mayra is like backstage, like puking her fucking brains out. She's sick. Like, you might want to hedge out. But, of course, my ego, my pride got in the way. I was like, because I've heard inside info before where a guy might be injured. I bet against that guy. Then that guy gets a first minute knockout. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you gotta be careful with the info you get. And I was like, yeah, hedging's for pussies. I'm going to fucking ride this out. And the way she gassed out in that fight was like, oh, wow, she really was puking the morning of. But she still had moments in that fight, right? Like she still attacked a lot of submission attempts. And then the next fight against Macy Chiasson, I thought was a little unfortunate. I felt like she was whooping Macy that first round. I mean, like throwing spin kicks and like just like walking her down without a care in the world. Now she gets taken down in that second round, and that's the issue, the takedown defense for Mayra Shitara. It eats one elbow, the cut opens up, and then they stop the fight. That's it. Like we didn't get to see it play out. It would have been 1-1 going to the third. I would have liked to see who would have won that. And now she's dropping. And I don't know how I feel, because like on one hand, it's like I feel like she has unfinished business at 35. It's not like Macy Chiasson beat your ass. She landed one shot that opened a cut. They stopped the fight, and you won the first round. Like, yeah, so that stuff's frustrating. And then on the other hand, for her to make 25, and if gassing out was like an issue in the past, that means she's going to have to be running these extra miles, putting in extra work, and she might be in fantastic shape. Now, someone correct me if I'm wrong. I heard a rumor. I don't know if it's true. I heard a rumor that she may have cross-trained Mayra with the Fighting Nerds. Obviously, her main gym is ATT, but I heard a little rumor that she may have done a little work with the Fighting Nerds. Y'all let me know if that's true or not. And then with Jasmine, she actually left Canada. She went to Thailand for this camp, which I respect. I mean, you're taking on such a dangerous fighter in Mayra Shitara. Like, yeah, I get that. And with Jasmine, what I like about her, people like to act like she's old because she's 35. I think that's fake news too. Like, dude, like, look how she's performing. She doesn't look like a declining fighter. She's, some people are late bloomers. I just think that might be the case with Jasmine. So yeah, if Jasmine gets on top of Mayra, I don't think the fight's over by any means. I think that Mayra is going to be throwing subs off her back. I mean, we're talking about someone in Mayra that submitted Jillian Robertson, who has the most submissions in the history of not just that weight class, but in the history of women's MMA, so, and we're talking about more than Ronda Rousey, Mahdi, you know what I'm saying? So to submit someone like that speaks volumes. But yeah, my concern, just the submission attempts don't work. Now you're flat on your back. Then 3 minutes pass by, the round's over. I'm screaming at my TV. But man, I do not think Jasmine covers minus 235 on the feet at all. At all. Like, not, I think on the feet she's gonna get busted. I mean, wasn't Tracy Cortez outboxing this girl? Like, wasn't Tracy Cortez, even if she wasn't outboxing, wasn't it like 50-50 on the feet with Tracy? Like, come on, bro. I think Mayra's one of the most dangerous women, not just at 35, at 20 in the UFC. I think Mayra can finish any girl in the UFC. And the reason we got to talk of this, she's plus 200, dog. We're not dealing with, a pick-up. We're not dealing with and I know Jazz got the recency bias. She's been looking great, but who's she been looking great against? Priscilla Cachoeira. Like, if you're a UFC fighter and you haven't figured out how to beat Priscilla Cachoeira yet, there's a big issue. Fatima Klein, wrong weight class. And what was the other one on the current streak? I don't remember what the last one she had was. Let me double check that.
It was Lipski.
Oh, Lipski. Yeah, Lipski. We know that when Lipski's on her back, she the fight leaves her. I mean, and Antonina Shevchenko finished this girl on the ground. So, like, come on, man. I love Jasmine. I think she's incredible. I don't want to discredit her. I love her pace. I love her aggressiveness. But I think this is recency bias. Like, Mayra was favored to win the goddamn belt a year ago, up a weight class, like the weight class that Amanda Nunes ruled for like how long, So at most, I think this line is off, and I'm gonna actually roll the dice on the underdog for an upset here. So let's go, Mayra. Let's get it.
Before I break this fight down, what's funny about that Lipski fight is Jasmine was able to take Lipski down and submit her, but Karine Silva couldn't do it. So interesting fact there. But man, this
I mean,
fight is
listen, man. Ramsey Nijum knocked out Beneil Dariush, but Carlos Diego and Gamrot didn't. You know, so it's like
yeah,
MMA doesn't make sense, bro.
it's crazy. Now, this fight is a tough fight to call because both ladies are going to get the fight that they essentially want, which is a 15-minute grappling match. I mean, it's not guaranteed to happen, but both these ladies excel in the wrestling and grappling department, especially Bueno Silva, 7 submission wins in the in her pro career. Uh, I personally think it's going to be Jasmine winning a 30-27, just I'm not going to say boring top time based decision because she does have some aggressive ground and pound. I do think the ground and pound could put her in some precarious positions because the way she throws those elbows, uh, they could get snatched up into an armbar or
Oh,
potentially with a
real
triangle.
quick. Thank you for saying that because
Hey,
Ariana Lipski was rolling for knee bars, but she's just not confident enough in that. And then Miranda Maverick had a little armbar attempt too, but I wasn't sure if she was confident enough. Whereas like when Bueno Silva attacks a sub, she's taking that limb home with her. That's all I'm saying there. Go ahead.
exactly. Yeah, that's the one thing I noticed when I was watching that fight over. It's you just don't know how safe Jasmine can stay, especially with the new 12 to 6 elbows being legalized. That movement, if you make a mistake, you could throw off your balance to either side, and it just takes one for MBS to lock up that submission. So I'm not confident either way, but I'm gonna say dog or pass just because I do see that submission outcome for Bueno Silva, but I just don't like how she's just comfortable playing off of her back for 15 minutes, and I do think that
Yep.
is a possibility. So
I think so too. That's my concern, of course,
yeah,
you know.
pure
But
pure pick is
she's plus
Jasmine.
200.
Yeah, that's true. Pure pick is Jasmine, but at these odds, it's dog or pass.
Next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Lucas Alexander. He's minus 125, taking on Bogdan Grad, who's plus 105. Bogdan Grad's record is 14-2, and Lucas Alexander's record is 8-4. As a striker yourself, what do you think about Lucas Alexander's game? I mean, he definitely put a clinic on Steven Peterson. It looked beautiful.
Man, Lucas Alexander is such a clean kickboxer, and I just like the way he flows. Yeah, he flows in and out of movements, and he likes to dart in and out a lot, and it works for him. He's good at keeping his range, but that knockout loss to Jekka was really bad look.
It was,
Really,
but look. I don't think that was a reflection of Lucas's chin.
no.
What I thought was that was literally a day one mistake. Mahdi, what's the first thing they teach you in martial arts class? Keep your eyes on your opponent. So this
Mhm.
guy's on the ground. He tried to show off his jujitsu a little bit, and then when it was time to get back up, like Buddy's here and he's looking this way. Like you're literally looking the other way. So I think that's one of those things where, however harsh you and I can be about that, or anyone on the internet can be, I bet his coach was. I bet Julian Williams dug into Lucas Alexander for that shit.
I
For
wouldn't doubt it.
seeing.
And Grad is a very well-rounded fighter, but his biggest flaw is that he's really hittable. And I'm a big fan of Grad. I've been watching him in the regional scene, and this guy can do it all. He has really fast and explosive striking. He blasts head kicks left and right. And the one thing that I like best about him is that his cardio lasts all 3 rounds, even though he goes all out pressure every single round. And that's just something that's super impressive with the style that he fights. And going up against Alexander, who he has been finished in all 4 of his losses, and we talked about that Jekka KO a little bit, but I don't know. I just think that Grad is a little bit too hittable. He's not going to be able to find his rhythm in this fight. I do think that Alexander, even though it's just a 3-inch reach advantage, he'll be able to keep him at the end of his punches and just style on Grad here for 3 rounds. Unless he gets a early KO, I do think this fight goes late. So give me Alexander at these odds. He is the better kickboxer here, and I don't think this fight takes place on the ground for extended minutes at all.
Yeah, so obviously, if Alexander's going to win the fight, that's how it's going to be. You know, keep that distance, calf kicks, just those beautiful Muay Thai combinations. Here's my thing, though, bro. Lucas, the technique is clean, it's pretty. We mentioned that. It's the pace that I have an issue with. He needs a lot of distance to operate. Um, he needs a lot of space. He needs a lot of time in between throwing combinations. So yeah, I think if this is a pretty fight where he's just picking apart Bogdan Grad, then yeah, I mean, it's going to be easy for Lucas. But the thing about it is Bogdan Grad, although he doesn't have the technical acumen on the feet of Lucas Alexander at all, what he does have is that dog in him, man. And you know, it's funny because I was low on the guy before the last one, right? I was talking about, man, this guy, there's something about him. He just has a punchable face. Like, I don't know what it is, man. But dude, I take everything back after that last one against Aswell. People call it a robbery. I disagree. But more importantly than who you scored it for, that's neither here nor there. What really matters to me was the nonstop, relentless pressure, like just that pace, just in your face, not giving Buddy any room to breathe whatsoever. And the thing about it is he was in there with a volume striker, whereas Lucas is very low volume, but when he does throw, it looks gorgeous, right? So, like I said, if they're at distance and it's you go, I go, Lucas is gonna fucking look like Kun Pan or what was the name of one of these incredible Muay Thai fight? Like he's gonna look like fucking Rod Tang or some shit. Who was the guy you said?
Buakaw.
Exactly. He's gonna look like that, dude. Like, but I think if Bogdan can get in his face, make it dirty, make it a brawl, he could still get caught in that instance because in making it a brawl, you're gonna leave openings, of course. But I also think that he can start to push back Lucas Alexander and kind of like, you know how the way guys beat Edson Barboza, right? They make Edson Barboza get uncomfortable on the back foot where he's moving a lot and he doesn't feel like he can really get his footing set and he can't really just let those combinations go. And you got to put that kind of pressure on a guy like Lucas Alexander. And I think if Bogdan Grad can, you know, stay conscious, you got to remember that Tom Nolan fight was at 55s and the size difference there was huge. I think Nolan's like 6'3" or some shit. I like Bogdan Grad better at 45s. Yes, obviously. Like I said, the technique might not be the prettiest, but he's effective. He's a dog. I think he's going to push a pace on Lucas Alexander, and I think he's going to win a grimy brawl. So give me Bogdan Grad in this one.
Another banger of a fight, man.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's going to be good. This whole card is fucking awesome, man.
A lot of sleeper fights. Like you tell the average UFC casual about Bogdan Grad and Lucas Alexander, like who? And then you tell us, we're like, okay, cool. We're getting a really good fight here.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And kicking off the card in the heavyweight division, we got Hamdi Abdelwahab. He's minus 110. And the comeback on Jamal Pokes, there is no comeback because we got a dead pick on minus 110 on Jamal Pokes. Now, Hamdi Abdelwahab, according to Tapology, he's 3-0. But the thing about that, before I talk about Jamal's record, is that it says 3-0 on Tapology, but when I watched his UFC fight against Dontel Mays, it said 5-0. He beat Dontel Mays. That means 6-0. And you can give me PEDs all you want. Yeah, okay, great. But he still beat Dontel Mays. Like, I don't know. I just view fights differently than people. Like people say, oh, but it's a no contest. Therefore, it never happened. But it did happen. I saw two guys get into a fight and one guy beat the other guy's ass. How was that a split? How was that a split? Like, please, someone answer me. How was Dontel Mays versus Hamdi a split? The only round you can give to Dontel is the second round. That's it. That's literally it. And Hamdi, the fact that, like, so he's got an Egyptian Olympic wrestling pedigree, which is like, oh, shit. Yeah, it might not be USA, Russia, or Iran, but so what? To get to make it to the Olympics in Egypt, like, dude, Egyptians are built different. One of my teammates, Ahmed, he's also a wrestler from Egypt, bro. Tying up with that guy it just feels different, bro. It just feels different. So, yeah, I would not scoff at the fact that, oh yeah, he's an Olympian, but where's he an Olympian from? Yeah, I would cut that out. Like, show some respect. Egyptians are fucking strong people with a long history. And yeah, so I think this guy's legit. I just think he's green in MMA. but he's a real competitor. For the first time he ever got pushed in that fight, because he rocked Mays early in the fight and almost emptied the clip, and then there's still 12 minutes left to go, right? And yeah, I felt like he stayed calm. He showed good composure, occasional takedown here and there. His takedowns are more upper body. Seems like a Greco guy. But here with Jamal Pogues, I actually think Jamal Pogues is better than people think. Like when I saw him on Contender Series the first time, I know he went on there twice. The first time I was like, this guy's a fucking bum. like, who's this? Like, Jesus. But man, I've been seeing big leaps in his game. He does a lot of things I like. Let me pull up a stat I like about this kid. Well, firstly, I like the fact that he fights behind his jab, that he's active. But when you talk about Jamal Pogues, now I did actually think on paper that the volume was a lot higher than it actually is. So guess I gotta retract that. For some reason, I thought he put up way bigger numbers. But look, I like the fact that he fights behind his jab. I like the fact that he doesn't look like the most intimidating guy. So you might be like, oh, who's this fat ass? But like, dude, he's got hands, and I think he's better than people give him credit for. And I think he's improving. That being said, how do these two match up? Well, I think if it's at distance, yes, Hamdi could hurt Pogues because Hamdi does hit hard. He's explosive. He's a real athlete. But in terms of like volume and output, Pogues has him covered there because there's going to be a lot of space where Hamdi needs like time to reset, to breathe, this and that, to reload, recharge, and then he's going to let his big bombs go. And in those little in-betweens, that's where I think Jamal Pogues is going to be getting that jab going, maybe mixing some leg kicks, and just kind of fill in the space of the in-betweens. But now that Hamdi's had that one UFC fight behind him, and he only went for like 2 takedowns in that fight too, and got them both. I'm curious if he comes out here and changes things up again a little bit. Maybe he thought he could knock out Mays. Maybe here he comes out here and shows that Egyptian Olympic wrestling background, because I've seen Pogues on his back and it is not the prettiest sight. So there's a clear path to victory. Now, do you put any stock into the PED thing that happened? I mean, like in this day and age with these doctors and scientists, you can mask a lot of things. So I kind of want to see Friday, the scales, just see how they look, see if anyone looks drastically different. But right now, recording this on Tuesday, I'm gonna go with Hamdi Abdelwahab to come out here and make the Saudi Arabia crowd very, very proud. But I reserve the right to change my pick after weigh-ins, but I highly doubt I do. I'm gonna take Hamdi Abdelwahab.
Yeah, this is the Super Bowl. This is the main event. They have the bout order reversed. Here we know what Pogues is really good at, and it's throwing out that jab. He pumps out that jab like no other, and he picks his shots, stays at the upside, and really tries to work his game. He's very susceptible to low kicks, but I don't think he's gonna face any trouble with that here. The Olympic wrestling experience from Hamdi is gonna be the difference in this fight, in my opinion. I do think that he lands takedowns at will in this fight. Although we haven't really seen Jamal Pogues get taken down too much, but when he got taken down, I believe it was by Peterson, he did not get back up in that fight. So against the guy,
didn't he also get held down? Correct me if I'm wrong. By Josh Parisian, like on his regionals.
Yes.
Oh, not good.
Bad
not
look.
good.
Bad look. So I think in this fight, it'll be to Hamdi's benefit to just go for takedowns early and often, because if he lands the first one, it's just a downhill battle from there, because he's just going to start rolling. When you snowball, and you know this more than anyone, Dan, when you snowball when it comes to the wrestling and the grappling, it's just really it's not going to be an easy night for you, to say the least.
Facts.
Because in the striking, you can regain rhythm pretty quickly, but when it comes to grappling, it's if you're on the bottom, you're trying to work back up. That's taxing cardio.
Under the bottom, on bottom under an Olympian.
Yes.
Heavyweight.
Specifically under an Olympian heavyweight, when you're not really used to wrestling at heavyweight. And let alone Jamal Pogues is a light heavyweight that's fighting at heavyweight because he doesn't want to cut. I just see it as that. So for all those reasons, I agree, and I think Hamdi wins this fight through and through. I'm waiting on the weigh-ins to see how he looks like, and I more than likely will have a smaller sizing on this fight, but just for fun.
Got you. So that's it as far as the card is concerned. I know there were 2 fights that got canceled. Now, Muniz and Aliskerov, they're rebooking for a later date. I know you had a bet on that, but maybe you don't want to talk about it until the time comes. Because
Yeah, I'll wait until
okay,
that card comes back
cool.
around, and maybe we'll do this again.
Yeah. But the other fight that got canceled, and I doubt they rebook it, was Bolaji Oki versus Kareem Abdul Al Salwadi. Did you have a pick for that fight? Should it ever happen again?
Yeah, if it was under the same circumstances where it was short notice for Oki, I would have said Sawadi, just because I could see the potential for takedowns and just Oki gassing out as the fight goes on. But if it's both fighters on a full fight camp, I'm taking Bolaji Oki.
Got you. Yeah, I was actually going to take Kareem Abdul Al Salwadi there at dog odds. The line was getting upwards of plus 160. Yeah, I was going to take him there, but that's neither here nor there. Mahdi, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me right here, right now on Half the Battle. The fans can follow you at Wizz MMA. Keep killing it. This is my boy. Any message for the fans before I get you out of here?
First and foremost, thanks for having me on. It's always fun
Sure.
talking fights with you, and I'm sure this is not the last time. So we'll be back soon. Man, just trying to take this event fight by fight. I think that's what's been working for me over the past year specifically. Last year, I switched up like a couple of my criterias in terms of betting and what I look for. So it served me well. It was a huge bounce back year, and looking to do the same this year and just keep that pace going. Looking
Yeah.
forward to these fights. There's a lot of really good fights this weekend, so I'm excited. And it's early. Like I got to wake up at 6 a.m. to start watching these fights. I'm not complaining.
Yeah,
The
well,
more
I'm
the
proud of
merrier.
you. Keep it up, man. Keep up the great work. For all the fans, thank you all so much for all your support that you've shown me since day one or along the way. I'm grateful. You can follow me on Twitter at Best Fight Picks, on Instagram at Half the Battle Pod. Please subscribe. Please hit the like button. Leave me a comment. Share if you feel so inclined. I'm going to be back on Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for a live interview and exclusive interview with undefeated UFC bantamweight prospect Malcolm Wellmaker. He's coming off a devastating knockout on Contender Series, and you know, a lot of these guys have been getting booked, but he hasn't yet. I want to know why. So we're gonna get him on the show Friday at 5 o'clock Eastern. Y'all make sure you tap into that. And thank you all again for all your support. So grateful. Thank you, Mahdi, for joining me. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.